Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our regular board meeting for June 24th. We're going to start with a roll call. Kinsey?
McCoy,
Here.
Gerlach,
Here.
Mills,
Here.
Lee, Becker,
Here.
Crossan,
Here.
Lyerly.
Here.
Okay, all board members are in attendance. We're also joined at the table by a member of our ICSC. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Andres Moore, and I'm the president of Intercity Student Council.
Welcome. Feel free to chime in if you have any thoughts. All right, would you all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Ku. Oh, before you start that, would you, we have another student. We weren't expecting any students tonight. We're really happy to see you. Can you please introduce yourself?
Is it on? Okay. Hi, I'm Blake Ochadovic and I go to Preble High School and I'm a senior.
Welcome. Okay, now Ku.
Okay, thank you, Laura. I'm going to read the mission statement for Green Bay Public School District. We educate all students college, career, and community ready, inspired to succeed in our diverse world.
Okay, and then finally, we'll have the land acknowledgement statement. We, the members of the Green Bay Area Public School District, recognize and honor the original inhabitants of Northeast Wisconsin. Our district lives, works, and learns upon the ancestral homelands of the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations and the current homeland of Oneida Nation. We acknowledge the 12 diverse and vibrant Wisconsin First Nations who have persevered here since before recorded time and continue to be integral parts of our community. We uphold our responsibility to repair relationships, initiate partnerships, and stand with all First Nation communities. All right. I don't know if you guys came prepared to do a report. Okay, that's fine. Like I said, we weren't expecting anything, so, but again, feel free to speak up during the course of the evening. All right, next we have our public forum. I have 3 people who want to speak. If there's more, you need to fill out the form and get them to Kinsey. Okay. All right, we take them in the order that we receive them. The first one is Nicole. Is Nicole here? Is she gonna call in? All right, maybe she's not here. All right.
If it's a new form, is it possible that it was someone trying to?
Yeah, we'll move on, but try to get her on the line if we can. Thank you. Next is Jim Rafter. Would you please come to the podium? You have 5 minutes. State your name and address.
Thank you. Good evening. Is this on?
Yes.
My name's Jim Rafter. I live at 411 West Briar Lane in the village of Alloway. I'm here tonight as the Alloway Village President. First thing I'd like to do is I'd like to thank you all. Thanks for what you do on behalf of our children, our families, and our communities. I know this process of looking at financial hardships and future enrollment and a very emotional process for many on the reality of having to close some schools is a very tough one. So I thank you for what you do and for the hard work you've done. I'd also like to acknowledge the hard work of our task forces, the facilities task force and the boundaries task force, for once again taking a very emotional and challenging task and doing, I think, a great job. So I'm very thankful for that. Our village board, the Alloway Village Board understands the need to consolidate schools in our community. Alloway currently has 3 schools. The proposal is to go down to 2 schools. And we understand that. We understand the challenges of finance and the burdens we are given trying to figure out how to do a lot with very few dollars. So we understand that. Tonight, I'm here to address the consolidation or the proposed consolidation of Langlade and Doty. The closure of any school in a small community such as Alloway will have a large impact on our community. We are a very small community of 14,000 people with approximately 1,400 students of school age. So the impact will have a lot to do or impact on the students, obviously, the families, but it's also the community at large. And so I'm here tonight because I want to talk about that briefly and to make an ask. Approximately 15% of the students who can go to school in Alloway end up going to De Pere. And as you know, a school and the quality of schools, which I happen to think you do a great job and Green Bay does a great job. I'm very proud of our schools. We have to really make sure that whatever we do will really benefit the whole community. I want people to want to move into Alloway because of our schools, as for other reasons. But it's a very important part of why people move or don't move into Alloway. And so I just want us to be able to take a look at the proposal, and we're going to ask for a small change to the wording of the resolution, not necessarily the intent, but the wording. And the request I'm making on behalf of the Alloway Village Board is that the language of the resolution regarding the consolidation of Doty and Langlade be phrased in such a way as to provide the school board with the flexibility to engage with the village of Alloway on possible merging Doty and Langlade. That's all we're asking, is to provide you the opportunity to engage with the village. We have a lot going on in the village. We have some very smart people. And if there's ways to be able to come up with a different solution, save money, I don't know, but I know there's an opportunity, or we'd like the opportunity to engage. We haven't come to you before because we wanted the process that you put in place to play out. We wanted you to look at the facilities, identify the needs, identify the shortcomings, and then engage the community on what are the boundaries? Where does it make sense? You did that. You did a great job. But once again, all we're asking is that the school board of Green Bay allows yourself the flexibility by rephrasing the resolution for combining Doty and Langlade, and give yourself the flexibility to engage with the village of Alloway in discussion and possible different solution. I'm not saying it would be a different solution, but we'd like the opportunity. That's it. I thank you again for the hard work you do. I hope you're open to this idea, because it's never too late to make the right decision. And I know it's late in the process, but you have a lot of smart people. We have a lot of smart people. And this change is going to impact our community a great deal. So we'd like the opportunity. I thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim. Do we have any luck reaching? Oh, okay. All right. We just have one more, which is Denise Gomer Hutchinson. Is she here? Oh. All right, to state your name, you have an address, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you for allowing me for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm Denise Gomer Hutchison. I live at 3184 Hermans Road, New Franken, Wisconsin, 54229. And I'm a parent of 2 students from Wicquiac, Red Smith, and Preble. And I also work for the Wisconsin Public Education Network, which is a statewide organization committed to ensuring that every child, no matter their zip code, have access to a great, high-quality, well-funded public education. In this job, we constantly ask ourselves, is this what's best for our children? Is the professional team that is in and around the classroom what's best for children? Is the educational materials that are being offered what's best for children? Are the playgrounds what's best for children? Are the buildings the safest, most secure locations for our children? Additionally, I know that this is also what all of you ask yourselves when you're making your decisions for all the children in this district. And it's a very challenging decision. It's a very challenging time for all of us to feel great about what's happening in our public schools because our state legislature is not supporting what our public schools need. And so it's hard for us to answer those questions. I'm here to tell you that you are not the only district that is going through this process. Up through the April 2024 election, more than 101 referendum questions have been put on the ballot this year so far to impact the funding for public schools. When public schools in Wisconsin don't receive the funds from the state legislature that are necessary, they need to be successful in meeting the needs and financial obligations and needs of children in another way. For the professional staff that serve these children and the buildings that are maintained in the districts are having to make very difficult decisions because that money is not going as far as it needs to. And you're always continually asking what's best for the kids. And that's in the forefront of your minds. And we know that because it's what we're hearing statewide. In November, there will be a lot more referendum efforts throughout the state of Wisconsin to assist with the funding of public schools. Green Bay Area School District isn't alone in this process and in this conversation. Additionally, statewide, there's a large number of other districts who are having to close buildings and address these efforts to educate the children, not keep the buildings. So these questions continue to be asked. Wisconsin Public Education Network recently presented some information to the public on our website at wisconsonnetwork.org and in presentations like this one about the status of public education in Wisconsin. Wisconsin allocates 36.6% of its general fund towards K-12, pre-K-12 school aid, which might seem like a lot, but when you consider this, that's only 5.2%. That's 5.2% below the national average. So let me say that again, 36.6% of the state budget, but we're 5.2% below the national average. Just 10 years ago, our state allocated 43% of its general fund to public education. 20 years ago, Wisconsin ranked 11th in the nation for robust funding of public schools. Now we rank 25th. School taxes in our state are lower than they used to be and among the lowest in the region. Wisconsin, whereas in 1985, Wisconsinites paid for education at the rate of 2.5% of their personal income in taxes. Today, that is down to 1.5%. A full percentage point is a lot of money when you think about what that money really is. Because of the decrease and the decisions of the Wisconsin State Legislature, for 16 consecutive years, school funding in our state has failed to keep pace with inflation. Remember the historic increase in school funding promised in the 2023-25 budget? That $325 per pupil increase would have had to have been more than 10 times that amount to keep up with inflation. In 2009, our combined revenue limit and per pupil aid lagged inflation by $75. 4 years later, the lag was $1,856, and now it's $3,235 per pupil. In addition, our special ed reimbursement is at 33%, in the lowest in the nation. Statewide public school enrollment has only decreased by 52,000 students since Act 10 in 2011. But state funding has dropped substantially, and private school vouchers have increased substantially. So I'm here tonight to say to you, thank you for serving on this board. Thank you for providing community members with an opportunity to participate in your task forces. And thank you for making very hard decisions regarding our public schools. It is clear you, the Green Bay Area Public School Board, and the staff are constantly asking yourselves, is this what's best for children? All the children that we serve in the district. Public schools unite all of us. And it's a real opportunity to watch democracy in action. So I support you in what you're doing. The state of Wisconsin supports you because they're all having to do it. And I wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, that completes our open forum. Next, we're going to do the legislative update. Brian.
So this month, there wasn't much happening in the state because of them just being in recess. So on our legislative update, I just shared 4 things that I found interesting that related to our public schools and some links with them from the state. The state superintendent released a statement that the Joint Finance Committee hasn't released the funds for Act 20 training, which is our literacy training. So there's a link to that. I also shared 2 things from WASBA. One of them, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. The first one's redistricting, talking about some opportunities to advocate for public schools, and then shared the map that DPI shared showing which legislative districts are by school district, which was also shared with us before. So interesting fact there, or information there. And then also I shared 2 bits of federal legislation that we may not have seen that have that are in committee right now that you can share with your friends and neighbors and everything on there. The first one is dealing with the Truth and Healing Commission on Indian boarding schools, which is in committee right now. And then also I shared the Biliteracy Education Seal and Teaching Act, which works to provide funds to states to work on their programs, which I thought was interesting because we had just talked about that at our last meeting. So if you click on the link, it shares to the board. I'm sorry, it shares to the bill for those and the sources on there. So.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? I do. Why has this money not been released? Can anyone answer that? I'm happy to hear what you have to say about that.
The Joint Finance Committee has chosen not to, so.
Yeah, do we know why? When that money,
That's what the Joint Finance Committee does.
we're up to our necks in this work and it's not cheap.
Well, and the district still needs to provide the training. We need to, I'm sure the superintendent or someone else can speak on it, but we have to come up with the money to provide the training, and the money's there and it just hasn't been released yet. So it's the Joint Finance Committee.
Will they be having, well, they probably are done with hearings on that. So, all right. Okay, does that complete your report? Okay. Next is referendum updates. We're going to be joined at the, oh, nope, sorry. Yes, Josh is going to be joining us. Yeah, this is from our last referendum update, a project update.
Yep, this is regarding November 22 referendum projects, just to give the board an update of where we're at on some of that stuff. And I'm going to share my screen here, maybe. So first, to go through a list of projects that have already been complete, that were funded by the referendum that passed November of 22. The East Fire Alarm is in, along with the Edison Track and Long Jump. Franklin Roof has been complete, the Jackson All-Inclusive Playground, Preble Upper Parking Lot, the playground asphalt at Smith, the cooler and freezer at Smith, the beautiful baseball and softball complex out at Southwest and Southwest Roof. Those are all fully complete projects. We've got a number that are currently in process that we're expecting completion in 2024. Many of these will be complete either this summer or in the fall. Some may drag a little bit almost into winter, but all of these are underway in different at different stages, I guess, in their completion. We've got the Eldo Playground going in that has been completely demolished at this point. I don't know. I know Laura's probably seen it.
It's right by my house. Yeah, it's quite a big dig there. Surprising amount of dirt has been moved.
Yes, and that was the challenge of that project. That site led to very muddy conditions and the grass wasn't really taking, so we had to get really creative with that site. But I think you're going to be very happy with that.
I'm sorry, is there structure that needs to be put in there in order to support like a ADA compliant surface, or what? I mean, I'm just curious about what's going on underneath.
Yeah, we're doing turf and that goes over a bed of compacted sand. There's no concrete or anything like
Okay.
that under there. So yeah, it's artificial. It's going to be green. It's not going to make a mess, but it's going to be safe.
No more wood chips.
No more wood chips and no more mud.
No more mud.
Baird Playground is also going in at this time. The dance playground is a little bit further behind Baird and Aldo just because of the coordination required with the city of Green Bay. The east renovation in addition is coming along nicely. That will be ready for the fall. So that includes an addition of a weight room along with some significant renovations internally of various locker room spaces and part of the cafeteria. Edison Auditorium, and many of these you can see progress on our social media. Lori's team does a great job of documenting these things. Edison's Auditorium is right now sitting completely gutted, ready for new flooring, new seating, new sound. The windows, the ceiling and lighting, that's been an ongoing project that'll be wrapping up this summer. The chiller for Lombardi has been on order for like a year, unfortunately. Hopefully we get that before next summer. It's a little bit too late to address some of these warm days this summer so far.
Is that just a manufacturing issue?
It's a supply chain issue.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Lombardi and King's solar and LED lighting projects are underway. Those should be complete this summer. As a reminder to the board, I think I've mentioned this before, we are going to get a 99% electricity offset on the solar project at King once the LED lighting is in. So that's fantastic. And we'll be offsetting about 50% of our electricity at Lombardi. The Preble renovation in addition, it's funny to see these projects described in so few words because they're such massive projects. That's an addition, enlarging the commons and adding 8 classrooms on the second level there. That is well underway. That project also includes the renovation of the auditorium, which is a massive gut and reconstruction, along with reconstruction of the bathrooms off of the commons. So a lot going on there over at Preble. Most of that should be wrapped up by the fall. I think the auditorium is going to linger a little bit later. We're working with the arts departments there to schedule around that. That will be worth the wait though. Preble Stadium is pretty much complete. I have it still in progress because there are a few things we're just finishing on the way out, including putting the scoreboard in, the entrance feature. But for the most part, the the functional parts of that project are complete. At Southwest, that auditorium sound has been ordered. That'll be going in this summer. The Sullivan Playground will probably linger into fall. Again, much like Dan's, there's coordination required with the city on that. The Washington roof has been engineered. They're putting together estimates right now, and that should be going out to bid shortly. It would not surprise me if the board saw a recommendation to award a contractor on that project next month. The west renovation, in addition, this also includes a weight room addition and a tasteful modernization of that amazing auditorium, along with some locker room work, reworking the wrestling room on the second floor. That is on schedule. And we're looking to be opening that in the fall. The West Stadium is well underway. We are aiming to have that ready for competition in the fall. There will still be work to be complete, but it should be competition ready and ready for spectators. And then West is also getting a new roof. So that's all going on right now as we speak. And then just as a reminder of things that haven't come before you yet, we've got a Franklin renovation planned with the auditorium and gyms. We've got several HVAC upgrades at Howe, John Dewey, and Sullivan. The Kennedy Playground is on here, but that one's been sitting in limbo as some ideas has started to take shape up about that site at Kennedy with the school consolidations. So we're looking to make sure that we don't put it in a place where we're going to have to rip it up. Lombardi's getting an FCS lab. Southwest is getting their gym floor taken care of, and new bleachers. New bleachers also going into West and East, by the way. My Sullivan Playground should have been removed from here. That is actually in progress. Got some orchestra room sound panels going in at Washington, and then in addition out at the Auxiliary Services Building to support our central food processing and our warehouse. We'll be moving elements of technology out there as well.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Josh? Okay, yes, go ahead, Brian.
I saw someone was receiving training on our scoreboards coming up in the displays, so that should be pretty amazing, and that'll be at Rebel and West, am I correct?
Yeah, at the Preble and West football stadiums, there will be large video. These are becoming more common, but I believe they're the first ones up here in Northeast Wisconsin. So Green Bay will be in first, and there will be many that will get jealous and follow suit. I'm sure. The really cool thing about those scoreboards, and you may remember when I brought it to you for your approval, it comes with curriculum for the content creation and also kind of the business side of things for soliciting sponsors and things like that. That those scoreboards will be able to generate revenue, and it will allow our kids to learn in kind of a neat real world environment. So I'm looking forward to that. There's also a smaller video board actually going into the West Gym as well. So that scoreboard is being replaced, and there will be an element of video, that indoor scoreboard as well.
Yes.
I would imagine that those scoreboards with the new stadiums would lend us to hosting regionals for track and things. It would just make it more attractive. I'm not saying WIA is going to run up and see it, but that's definitely going to help just those opportunities, I would assume, right?
Yeah, that was certainly a goal as we were designing these athletic spaces. We knew this was kind of our one shot to get it right. So getting the latest and greatest has been a focus. I do think that the WIAA will know what Green Bay has to offer in terms of hosting those sorts of competitions.
Anybody else?
And hosting those events obviously brings money into the community, you know, so a track regional event is going to bring people from obviously throughout the region with it. That's going to help all of our businesses and stuff like that. So hopefully it can work.
Yeah, I agree. We never have these updates without, me chiming in about how, just another chance to express the gratitude of the taxpayers and voters of this community, who I think agree with, the rest of the board that, our kids deserve the best facilities that we can provide for them. And also I want to acknowledge this is Josh's last appearance as Chief Operating Officer in front of our school board. He's been with our district for 10, I think 10 plus years. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, 13 and going on 14.
There we go. I don't know anybody who works for our district who has more fingerprints on everything that goes on in our district. All the facilities, all these referendum projects. I mean, I know it's a team effort, but Josh has been spearheading the efforts over the last few years, and it is a huge and unrelenting job. I mean, the referendum projects are the fun things, right? These are the things that the voters have said yes to, and they're just piles of good news, and I always love these updates. But if I had to point to one thing that Josh has done in his time with us that none of us can ever thank him enough for, is what he did when we were experiencing the pandemic and all the upgrades in technology that we went through on such an accelerated time, that it was breathtaking what we had to do as a district in such a short period of time. And Josh was in charge of that. Again, I know it was a whole team. A lot of people had a hand in that, but it was a relentless process. And I just want to tell you that, again, we can never thank you enough for what you did for our kids during such a very, very difficult time. So you're moving on. We're sorry to see you go, but I want to take a moment to say thank you for your service to our district and the children that we all are honored to serve.
Thank you. And as long as we're not quite on the posted topic, I do want to acknowledge my teams. I'm reporting out on these projects right here. But there are 31 other projects going on this summer that you have no idea are happening. Some of those are related to some of these difficult decisions for consolidation that you've gone through. Some of this is just routine stuff, but this is an extremely busy time of year. Can't say enough how proud I was of our operations teams coming together to support Eldo in its time of need. When it had a fire the last week of school, we haven't really talked about that at the board table here. Those kids only missed one day of school. And within 24 hours, we had a school set up out at UWGB to just keep some element of normalcy for those kids. Facilities was responding not only to a facilities emergency, but also they were working on getting stuff set up out at GB. Amy and her team in technology got over 200 Chromebooks ready to go in less than 7 hours. Lynette had moved food service operations out there They had some of the same lines that they would have seen at school. The kids were just, kind of amazed. We had Chad scrambling to get transportation going for those kids out there. And, Eldo kids, many of those kids had never ridden a bus before because they're not eligible for busing to Eldo. So there are many people to thank, but I do want to highlight the commitment and the expertise and competence of those operations teams. It was remarkable.
Our facilities departments are second to none, and the work that they do is so behind the scenes. I think often take it for granted, but we shouldn't. It's a huge lift every day. So, anybody else have anything they'd like to say? Well, we wish you well, Josh. Thank you for everything.
It's been a pleasure. Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to, under discussion, we're going to be talking about a series of resolutions. And I think we'll be joined at the table by.
Want to begin with that?
Yeah,
Sure. If the Nexus team could join us, please, we'll begin with that. We wanted to share some site concepts linked to boundary decisions. So is Kevin presenting? Is the team? Okay. Yeah, oh, that's okay. You can stay up if you want, Lori. Yeah, right. Maybe she's leaving. Kenzie will go ahead and pull up that slide deck, please. We wanted to share some site concepts linked to the boundary decisions. Nexus has been visiting many of our buildings and generating site concepts to assist in creating a referendum project list. And tonight we just wanted to share with the board the ones that are linked to the boundary decision that you'll be making today.
welcome. Can you introduce yourselves, please?
Good evening.
Go ahead and hit the microphone.
There you go.
There we
Thank
go.
you.
There we go. Yes, good evening. Thanks for giving us time this evening on your agenda. My name is Brent Jones, one of the co-owners and co-founders.
Yep. one at a time.
How does it
Yep,
work? Okay.
Yep.
Oh, you gotta push.
Go ahead and hit yours again, Brent. Yeah.
Oh, you hit yours, right? Okay. At my left, I have one of my business partners, Russ Schumacher, and to my right, I have one of our project developments, Brian Winterly, and we're here this evening to talk to you about an initial facilities plan review. There we go. What we'd like to talk to you about this evening are the buildings that we've evaluated so far, the goals that we heard them as far as facilities planning and how that melds with your resolutions this evening regarding boundary discussions. Share with you how we evaluated the elementary schools that we're going to discuss this evening, share with you some high level concepts and budgets, and then discuss next steps. So you'll see here the list of buildings. We did evaluate 22 of your buildings so far. We've extensive analysis has been done there. We did expand upon and synthesize the ATS&R report that you had done a couple of years ago. We built up off of that. That was a wonderful study and money well spent on the district's part. We've, as you can imagine, that was done prior to your boundary discussions that you're discussing today. So we sort of filled in any gaps, if you would, that were remaining in that study, and then developed detailed concepts and detailed budgets for each building that's affected with your proposed consolidations. So wanted to let you know, we did look at 22 buildings, but this evening, we're just going to talk to you about the 8 elementary schools that are impacted by the today's discussion. We didn't do it alone. Your tremendous facilities department has been a great resource and asset for our team, and along with the service providers in town here that have a distinct knowledge of your buildings, a long history with your district. We're also very instrumental in helping us put this together. On the far right-hand column there, you can see all the different attributes, if you would, that we looked at each building. everything from interiors to exterior to HVAC to traffic and safety, but also specialty systems such as safety systems, theatrical systems, pools, playgrounds, things of that nature. The goals as we saw it for this facilities plan was the first one there to support the efforts in reducing operating costs through consolidation while simultaneously improving the learning environments for all students. So we want to make sure that, as you bring meld schools together, that kids aren't just getting pushed into existing buildings, right? We're not looking to overcrowd anything. We're not trying to look to to decrease the experience that they're having. We want to make these buildings fair and equitable to your new schools, like a Baird, if you would. So that was goal number one. Second goal there is to ensure that we provide appropriate workspaces for all district employees. So in the buildings, so if you're a general ed teacher, a special ed teacher, a para, or a specialist such as a speech or psych specialist, that you have the appropriate workspace to be effective in your job and students can learn as intended. And then lastly, we kind of hit upon this, but we're looking at to establish equity between all your buildings regarding amenities, condition, types of spaces that they all have. So regardless of where you live in the district, we want students and staff to have the same experience regardless of the building age in which they're attending. The priorities are kind of the lens, if you would, in which we looked at your elementary schools. We looked at, a lot of different attributes, but these are 8 kind of rose to the top. We were looking to make sure that we had separate gymnasiums and cafeterias. You do have a few of those still remaining. And as you all know, sitting around the board, that when they're consolidated into one, then the tail kind of wags the dog. The FIHED schedule dictates how things are done throughout the school day, and that's not the most effective way to teach and learn. We want to make sure we have a sufficient number of classrooms for the proposed enrollments post consolidation, right? We're not trying to cram too many kids into a too small building. We want to make sure that we got the number of classrooms and the classrooms are sized sufficiently. A few of your older elementaries did, I guess say, have some classrooms that were under par from a square footage standpoint, and we wanted to address those, and our concepts do. From a consistency standpoint, we're trying to establish community rooms and community partnership spaces in all elementary schools. Again, these are neighborhood schools. These are taxpayer community assets, and we want to make sure that the community has a space that they're welcome to use. We want to make sure we have student breakout small group spaces. The teaching modalities today are different. It's not just a teacher in front of 25, 30 students in a classroom. There's a lot of individualized learning. There's a lot of small group. There's a lot of intervention work and volunteer work that needs for students that need extra help. And we want to make sure that they have a respectful place to go and do this. And they're not just sitting on the hallway floors. And we want to, where possible, and that's a caveat, we want to improve the parent drop off and pickup space. Obviously you design a new school today and a new site. You're well aware that students don't ride the buses as much as they used to, and there's a lot of parent drop off and pickups. So we want to make that a safer and more efficient process where we can. Some of your schools are in pretty small sites, and we are somewhat constrained on what we can do, but we want to make sure we address that. We want to make sure all your 4K rooms have in-room toilets, and then lastly, kind of a catch-all there is we want to address all the deferred maintenance that was identified in the HSNR report, as well as addressing building aesthetics. And aesthetics are important in that you want to make sure the building, again, these are community buildings, that the curb appeal and the inside feel of the buildings reflects the quality of the education being delivered. So we'll walk through the elementary concepts. I do want to emphasize these are high level. In the interest of time tonight, we've keeping this at a relatively high level. We do have itemized line item budgets for every project. We looked at it every building for all 22 buildings so far. And we've got detailed floor plan concepts already drawn up. And we will be doing another round of meetings with all the building principals to make sure that we've captured all their needs in the conceptual budgets or in floor plans. But just want to let you know tonight is a little more of a higher level, but we have that detail behind the scenes whenever you need to see it.
There we go.
Beaumont is the first school that we'll discuss tonight. Again, we'll give again an overview, maybe a little more detail on this one, and then the other ones will follow with some similarities. You have invested quite a bit in some of your infrastructure, HVAC, in a lot of your buildings over the last decade. There are some items still remaining, specifically at Beaumont. Boilers that have seen the end of their useful life, a 25-year-old chiller that uses R22 refrigeration, which is now no longer available, that refrigerant, and some air handling units, one that's actually, two of them that are actually from 1958 in your gymnasium. So basically upgrading the rest of your infrastructure in those spaces, LED lighting, you've done the gymnasium, but completing the rest of the building, providing a generator for life safety at this elementary school to be consistent with the rest, as well as some 1964 electrical panels to upgrade, replacing the gym roof. It's 1995 vintage shingled area, as well as making the entrance more attractive, as well as the facade, upgrading that a little bit so it has some more curb appeal, fixing and repairing the parking lot, the sidewalks, as well as new playground equipment and fall protection. The bathrooms, some of them are dated and need to be updated, as well as some of the fixtures need to be replaced so that the floors are more easily cleaned. Corridor and classroom interiors would be upgraded. An example in this case here, new ceiling tile, new casework, which is the cabinetry that's involved in the classrooms, replacing the chalkboards with new whiteboards, and then also replacing some of the interior doors throughout the building, so it has a modern feel when you walk through it, as well as a lock access is consistent with the district. A few kitchen items that were requested, as well as the furniture that you have planned for that building is also carried within the budget, and then making the corridors feel new and fresh. As far as the additions, as Brent was talking about, as you look at and evaluate the reboundaries, getting some students from tank requires separating that gym and cafeteria. So you'll see in the drawing there what's the dark brown kind of at the top north portion. That indicates the conceptual possible spot for the building addition that would contain a cafeteria, community spaces, some intervention, some mental and dental health areas, and revise the nurse and reception area, as well as some specialist spaces for speech, etc. Also, throughout the existing building, we want to incorporate some of the breakout spaces to allow for small group instruction and project work, and then also kind of office and storage so that it's more functional for the space. At the bottom of these, you'll see an overall total budget. That's a total project budget with all inclusive of the cost to build that, the items that are within the budget. Sure.
While we're on this first slide, just so I can understand how to interpret the rest of the slides, the ATS&R reports included schedules of maintenance going, into the next 30 years. Does that schedule of maintenance overlap with your definition of deferred maintenance? And if so, are these basically the short-term deferred maintenance, or does it go out what they had scheduled for the entire life of that building?
No, great question. These are short-term deferred maintenance needs. So these are things that we feel, as you're contemplating a referendum, that should be part of a referendum now. These are items that should be addressed in the next 3 years type thing.
So just to follow up, so it is a departure from what I would read in an ATS&R. So if I try to sync up what's on the slide and with the ATS&R, your investigation has revealed potentially other projects within these school buildings that may not be in that report. Okay, thank you.
I see on this, and I guess on some of the other elementary schools, you talk about toileting space for 4K in kindergarten. Is that can be flexible as well? So if we have schools that have ID students and medically fragile students that also would require toileting space and possibly laundry areas and stuff like that, would that be flexible, or is that included? Nice try. Is that not addressed with it yet?
Sorry about that. Quick on the draw. So where we have addressed some of those specialty restrooms in addition to the 4K, when we've met with the principals and they've said they're lacking those spaces. The 4K restrooms we're talking about would be within the 4K classrooms themselves, but they would be obviously designed to current ADA codes, not necessarily changing size. So if there's a special ed need for that, for the ID students, those are also incorporated in there.
Anybody else? Please continue.
I'll be covering Chapel. You can't read it, that very top line item is HVAC retro commissioning. So it's a very inexpensive process to make good use of your money already spent on HVAC. It saves energy, makes people happy, just calibrates and makes sure that you're not bringing in too much air, but just enough to make it, improve ventilation in each space. Let's see, lighting, adding a generator, much like Beaumont, a lot of these will be a little repetitive. We'll try to hit the differences between all the schools. What you can't see is switch gear. There's a switch gear under basically I'd call it the north parking asphalt area that's leaking into that. So we would recommend that be relocated into a safer space near a mechanical room, that it doesn't have any possibility of groundwater affecting the operation of your electrical system. Upgrades to the facade, specifically at Chapel, the north is up on this site plan. So where with the brown addition is shown, there's glass block for that gym. Parts of it look dated, so just want to update those to make it again, improve that curb appeal for the building and the site. Adding ADA path and special ed swing, we looked at that across the board for all schools. Specifically here, let's see, ADA bathroom remodels. There are bathrooms from 1950, 1959 that specifically look in tremendous shape. Again, maintenance staff, but they need to be refreshed and modernized. Much like you'll see a lot of the line item there for corridor is mostly for doors, lockers, etc. The classrooms finishes looked in good condition. It's just the casework and chalkboards, again, make the classrooms look dated. Jumping down to additions and remodeling, that north larger addition is for a gym where there is area to construct a gym, separate that from and include a community space and a partner area. In the lower or the south end of the building, there's two little additions. One is for an additional 4K classroom that was requested by Chris, the principal, and also adding in those 4K bathrooms that we can, depending on the location, they could be accessible potentially from a hallway space. Expanding specialty spaces specifically for intervention and literacy coach. That is next to an office expansion. The front office there, it has a secure entryway, but it's just very small in relation to the other sites. So we're looking to improve that. Also adding those breakout areas, renovating the old stage for a kitchen area, improving the kitchen function and having it close by to that gym space. And then what you see on the graphic there, we definitely don't want to get anybody tied into any concepts. This is one concept that would bring parents through the site around a relocated playground area, adding in a bus curb cut off the street and expanding the parking area and having everything safe with, things that aren't shown, railings, gates, fencing, et cetera, to definitely keep the kiddos away from vehicular traffic. And again, this would go through probably months and months of not only internal and school board review, but also, coordinated with the city. Any questions on Chapel?
Doty. So Doty, to incorporate the consolidation with Langlade and bring in over some of the special programs Langlade has, such as DHH. This building would require a large two-story addition to the northeast of the existing building. That addition would be comprised of new classrooms, new breakout space, new art, new music, and a new gymnasium. The existing combination gym cafeteria would be turned into a cafeteria only and upgraded. We are showing a parent loop around the building. Again, we're trying to get these parent loops some length to them. So they can show up when they want and start stacking and queuing and not be trying to get them off the streets as much as possible, right? So this concept, we have the parents going around just like the previous building and the buses out front. And you can see that new addition would require us to relocate the playground and then to reorientate your two soccer fields there to the east. Deferred maintenance wise, this building's got a few 1971 vintage ventilation equipment that if we're renewing this building and making it equivalent to like new building, that it's served its useful life and needs to be replaced. LED lighting to 1971 electrical panels that have aged out. Again, we want to update the facade and the exterior windows. So when you drive up to this building, it's got a new fresh look to it and a lot of interior finish work. Again, what Brian and Russ have talked about as far as casework and floor tile and things of that nature. So, and this building from an additions and remodeling standpoint also has a few classrooms that were undersized and we're looking to make them more like your traditional 850 to 920 square feet type full-size classrooms. Project budget of this is a little bit larger, much more extensive work, a much larger addition, and total project budget here of 26.2 million. Lincoln, the work here is a little bit smaller project. From an addition standpoint, it's really to incorporate a community space in there, a community room. If you've been in that building, there's a couple of second grade classrooms right behind the library, kind of interior space. Thought that would be a better use for some community space and get the classrooms back to the exterior where they have some natural daylight. In doing all that reshuffling, so to speak, it does require a small 2 classroom addition there on, I call it the south side, southeast corner there, southwest corner, excuse me. We've also showing a parent loop here as well, a parent drive on the property. As you can imagine, this is a very small parcel, so not a lot of room, but this is an improvement as far as cars stacking up and trying to be mindful of the neighbors with the cars. That would require relocation of the playground equipment. This site is really small. The area 3C there is the only grass area on the site. What's currently budgeted now is it's a turf system there, much like you have like a Leopold. It just, given the size of it and the number of students on it, without going a turf solution there, it probably won't hold grass very long, very well. So we are some different maintenance here as far as HVAC lighting, just like you've heard in other areas. The flat roof sections, the black you see, not the pitched roof, but the rubber black sections need to be replaced. The playground equipment needs to be updated, some ADA remodeling. And again, we are looking at, we took an inventory of all the furniture in each building. Some buildings are further along in the evolution of replacing the old traditional desk with more flexible furniture. So we've incorporated that into all these budgets as well as giving you nice new furniture where needed. So I think the remodeling, some classrooms upstairs need to get remodeled, create the breakout spaces, and we've talked about special ed and 4K restrooms kind of ad nauseum. So overall budget here of 11.9 million.
Nicolay, great school. It's easy to remember these vintages because half is 1939 and the other half is 1993. So you really step back in time from the addition. So from a deferred maintenance standpoint, we heard from principals and custodians that air conditioning gyms is kind of your new standard, especially air conditioning those spaces just helps preserve that wood surface and just keeps it not from being slick because it's the area that isn't being cooled, and replacing those air handlers. Let's see here, masonry stone. I definitely wanted to open up. There's some old windows that look like they've been kind of, I don't want to say basically boarded up, and increase the daylight to it, and especially your commons there. There's some nice tall windows that definitely want to have more daylight brought in, replace those windows, and add some window treatment so that you can do some presentations in that commons. and update that kitchen. It's got wood and laminate tops that probably don't comply with the current health standards. We talked to Lynette about that, and expanding your playground here as well. That was the focus. Definitely want to do here with corridors, replace 1939 lockers and paint 1993 lockers, so they're cohesive and really have a nice flow between the whole building and all the interiors, not only in the corridor but also some dated classrooms. Elevators is one thing that any two-story building, anything that's pre 2000 probably needs a modernization of some sort. So it could be maybe buttons or safety features of it. Sometimes it could be aesthetics if it's a really old elevator. Very few additions and remodeling here, but the couple that are listed there, community room and space, that north is actually to the left on the page. So it'd be, that'd be east side of the building towards the park space is a community room, and remodeling the old gym area for your community partners. First floor janitor closet, there's nothing on the 1993 section for the janitor. A little corner to create a space so that he doesn't have to he or she doesn't have to drag a mop and buckets all the way half across the building. And then we on the second floor creating a nice area for breakout that was convenient for a couple different grade sections. And the overall budget here is 9.6 million.
Sullivan is the next one. Here you have the oldest equipment that we ran across, 1960 boilers that are in need of upgrade, as well as chillers that are 30+ years old, as well as some unit ventilators in the building that are over 30 years old, which are the big boxes that sit in the classrooms that are noisy, require quite a bit of maintenance, all have their own filters, motors, etc. And when possible, you have moved to central systems. So that's what's proposed for Sullivan as well. Lighting, you've already done the first floor, but finishing LED on the second floor, getting rid of some 1960 electrical panels. So pretty consistent things that we looked through when we went through these buildings. Roofing, replacing the 1960 windows in the building, as well as the internal doors. Taking care of your exterior parking lots and asphalt. We'll talk about the site here in just a minute, but also upgrading your classrooms, or your corridor, classroom interiors, bathroom, and then the furniture and elevator updates, much like Brian just discussed. As far as the addition here, the addition is fairly small. It's just the community room that you'll see on the east side of the building, the brown square that will locate the community room. And also we want to right size the classes on the second floor specifically. There's really small classrooms, so we would take 3 of them and make them into 2 and make them sufficient for how you want to teach. And then also remodel the nurses space, relocate and expand the conference room, and then expand the special ed spaces and include breakout spaces through the building as well. One of the key components on the site here at Sullivan is to separate that bus and parent drop-off traffic that Brent had just talked about. And in this case, we're proposing to cut in, you can see by the number 4 up there, the bus drop-off. So that would be a new road, a new lane for the bus to drop off. And then what's shown as 2A and 2B would actually be the parent drop-off. There'd be 2 of them, 2 lanes that could be utilized, and then with a crosswalk to connect that 2B to 2A and then into the building. And then also add some ADA stalls and some additional parent parking indicated by number 1, which infringes a little bit on the hard play area, but we would resurface and rebuild that play area to make it functional. I'd also like to point out that the overall budget you see there does reflect a reduction of the amount that you had budgeted as part of the previous referendum. So that number is net of that number.
Lastly, this evening's Webster concept. So HVAC is in pretty good shape here. It needs to do some retro commissioning to deal with some comfort issues. We have some exterior facade work to do, some asphalt, just their general different maintenance. Otherwise, this building is in good shape. The additions are a new gymnasium and community room space on the, I guess that's the east side there, the large brown box in the upper part of the drawing. Or excuse me, that's the gymnasium back there. Community space would be out front on the lower part of the drawing there in the brown box. And it works well on the site. It doesn't disrupt your current turnaround loop in the back there or your drive out front. So it does fit nicely and we're able to do the community space without, while maintaining daylighting for the classrooms just to the east there. So again, modernizing the space, dealing with the deferred maintenance, total project budget here of $11 million. So from a summary standpoint, all the buildings that are impacted by the resolutions on your agenda this evening, we've got it broke down. So you can see two columns there. You have the deferred maintenance totals. And then you've got the additions and remodeling, and then you've got the total project budget by building. So if you go down to the very bottom, you see, and then I should also add, we didn't have a concept drawing for it. New elementary school at Kennedy. I know you're well aware of that concept. $60 million budget for that. And kind of midway down the page there for additions and remodeling of 60 million. So overall project budget for these 8 sites is 162.4. Now, keep in mind, you pass the referendum in November, you go through a design phase, you're not bidding some of this work until next year. And you can't tear all 8 buildings apart at the same time. You're probably doing this over at least 3 years. So we did, as you can see, our math there, we did factor in 10% inflation to deal with 3 to 4 years of construction. So we want to make sure that you've got the funds you need to do the project correctly.
Any questions?
So our plan will be then in July, give the fuller picture of what referendum would look like. What you saw tonight is everything included, specific to the boundary discussion that's coming up. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. All right. We're going to move on now to these resolutions that you've all had a chance to review. We're going to take them one by one. Okay, as far as take them one by one. If board members have anything about the way they're drafted that they would like to discuss or potentially amend. Let's go ahead and start with Langlade. Is there anything about this resolution that you would like to discuss or change? Go ahead, Lynn.
I'm just confused. We're not taking them in the order that they're listed here?
I've got
You're still in the discussion part.
We're in discussion.
Oh. Okay, I don't see them listed individually in the discussion question. Okay, thank you.
Are we okay with doing Langlade first? Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I don't mind doing Langlade first, but I don't understand the separation of discussion and action within the same. When the items are all up for action, I'm not concerned terribly about the order though.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I had the same question, Andrew, and I think that I got some enlightenment. First, we're going to see if there's any word smithing or changing of the wording before we go to a motion to approve. Is that right? Vicky's nodding her head. Does that sound, Andrew?
Sure, I mean, we'd still have to move them as amendments.
Yes. As motions.
It's, you know, unconventional, but it's fine.
All right, yes, I'm going off of under discussion where Langlade is first, but yeah, okay. All right, so anybody have anything they want to discuss? Okay. Go ahead, Brian.
We had a speaker question about the possible options to engage with the village. Is there any spot where that would be able to be included in this?
Go ahead.
Yeah, to your question, and I appreciate the village president coming and talking to us. The concern is, we have just a few weeks to formulate a referendum question. And in order to facilitate any kind of modification for the consolidation of those two schools, we have to move to something really concrete, really quickly. The only thing that's concrete in front of us is what's laid out in the project plan that's been worked up based on this particular resolution. So, you know, any board always has the ability to rescind or to make modifications at future when details become available at that point. But as far as, you know, taking action in order to put together the referendum question, it's the only set of facts that we have. So I don't know how we could modify the resolution and keep the project list as it is. So that's my position.
Andrew.
Yeah, I would say too that we have, you know, the board has the ability to make a modification if some new information or some new, you know, donor, and I'm talking about, it would have like an 8-figure donation were coming in, that would be enough to make it economically sensible to alter. We can always call a meeting for that if there's new information, but I don't see anything here that I would make a change in the motion for at this point. We can always call a meeting very game changing and unique comes up.
All right, anybody else with regard to the Langlade resolution? Okay. Next would be MacArthur. Any questions? Okay. Next is the Sullivan Nicolay boundary resolution. No, I was just going by under the
That's fine.
let's just go with Sullivan and Nicolay boundary. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay. Next is Elmore. Elmore, recommendation. Okay. And then the last one is the Dan's Martin boundary. Go ahead.
So both the Sullivan resolution and this resolution, the wording is slightly different, whereas other resolutions have a dependency on capital referendum, these don't. So I just want to make sure that we understand that we saw project lists presented tonight for Sullivan, and there is not a dependency on that project list being done and performing these boundary changes.
Okay. Right. If there aren't any questions, then about these resolutions, then we can move on to B, referendum preliminary project list. We just did that, is that?
That's presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. We switched, okay. Then, we're on to action items. All right. This one is Sullivan. Would someone like to read the motion? Go ahead, James.
I move that the Green Bay Area Public School District Board of Education resolution related to the Boundary Adjustment Committee and Green Bay Area Public School District's recommendations pertaining to the Sullivan Elementary School and Nicolay Elementary School boundary changes as presented be approved.
A second.
Do you have any discussion? Do you have any questions?
And where these resolutions are posted and are available to the public. I don't think the intention here is to read the resolutions tonight, but they are available for public consumption.
All right. Go ahead, Lynn.
And I just want to say thank you to James for writing the resolutions. I really appreciate it.
Yes, it was, what's that? It was a team effort. Other people had, I know it passed through a couple different people to make sure that all the legal things were in compliance. So, all right, if there are no more questions, I think we're ready to vote. Kinsey?
Online voting is now open.
Kinsey, I'm gonna need to do a voice vote.
Go for it.
Aye.
All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay. Next is the resolution for Dan's and Martin. Would someone like to read the motion, please? Go ahead.
I move that the Green Bay Area Public School District Board of Education resolution related to the Boundary Adjustment Committee and Green Bay Area Public School District's recommendations pertaining to Dan's Elementary School and Martin Elementary School boundary changes as presented be approved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or any discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. Brian?
Aye.
All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. Next is the resolution pertaining to the closure of MacArthur Elementary School. Would someone read the motion, please?
I move that the Green Bay Area Public School District Board of Education resolution related to the Boundary Adjustment Committee and Green Bay Area Public School District's recommendations pertaining to the closure of MacArthur Elementary School as presented be approved.
Second.
All right. Any questions or any discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. Mills?
Aye.
All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
All right, moving on to the consolidation of Langley and Doty. Would someone please read the motion?
I move that the Green Bay Area Public School District Board of Education resolution related to the Boundary Adjustment Committee and Green Bay Area Public School District's recommendations pertaining to the closure of Langlade Elementary School as presented be approved.
Second.
Any questions? Any discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. Mills,
Aye.
all votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay. The final one is pertaining to the closure of Elmore Elementary School. Someone please read the motion.
I move that the Green Bay Area Public School District Board of Education resolution related to the Boundary Adjustment Committee and Green Bay Area Public School District's recommendations pertaining to the closure of Elmore Elementary School as presented be approved.
Second.
Any questions? Any discussion? Andrew?
I'd like to move to postpone consideration of this resolution until the July meeting cycle.
Go ahead.
Is there, I just want to direct the question as to why we would do that.
I'd like to take some time to direct, to look at and to direct administration to potentially look at some other options for Elmore. Elmore is the most, of all the schools considered for closure, Elmore is the highest percentage full right now. And, these decisions are all difficult, but the judgment calls fall in different places. And I think there's, I know there is a clock that we're on, but I think that 1 month could give us some time to see if there's anything else we could do here.
Right.
I appreciate Andrew coming up with this. I had the same concerns about just the attendance numbers are there, how it's hit the one specific part of town on there, and was ready to vote against it as a resolution with this. So I think another month gives us that opportunity. I don't believe it impacts the timelines with other things considerably on there. So Andrew, thanks for making the motion.
Go ahead then.
I don't know who to direct this question to, but somebody, please tell us how this will impact our planning for the referendum and, what the timeline that we're on right now.
This schedule right now is for us to bring a preliminary project list to the Board of Education on July 8th for the work session and for discussion. At that point, we would begin to narrow down the project list and bring it to the public that same week. We would spend the next 2 weeks getting public feedback with the board voting on the referendum questions and the draft project list at the regular board meeting in July.
Yes, Lynn.
So one of the things, some of the referendum items are going to deal with Chapel, and that will be impacted by the closure of Elmore. So would we go ahead and for July 8th, be prepared to assume we're going to close Elmore and so we have those facts and figures in front of us, and then we can change our mind?
We're gonna have Lori come up and talk about, because it's her job to kind of start pushing out information to our students and families. And since school is starting earlier this year than normal, that timeline is even tighter. And just kind of, can you talk a little bit about what it takes to start informing the public about our referendum in November?
Sure. So if you recall in the November 2022 referendum, we had requested the board to vote on the referendum projects and the ballot question in July to give us an opportunity to get information out as soon as possible in August for all of our open houses and registrations. We're wanting that same request this year because we face the same issue, which is a very high-profile November election, which means there's going to be a lot of media brought into our community, right? People are going to get a lot of mailings and information regarding the election, same as we saw with the governor and senator's election in 2022. So our plan was to communicate as early as possible up front so that people had that information and we didn't get lost in the noise of the election cycle. With school starting August 26th, everything has been backed up earlier, so we're already looking at, I think, August 9th is one of the back to school days already for registration for one of the high schools. Our goal would be the same as it was last year or for 2022 cycle, which is to have the large information boards at all of the schools, to have material on our website, start our social media posts and all of that already mid-August. So if the board doesn't approve, so just even approving the list as of July, I think it's 22nd, I think is the date. I mean, that gives my team very little time to even get those things together. So we really are going to start thinking already about what that stuff is going to look like and start putting things together with the idea of here's kind of what we think the projects will be, because right, 2 weeks isn't enough time to pull a lot of stuff together. So we'll already start working on some of that.
Thank you. Andrew.
So I recognize the ideal of having information boards and final decisions ready for open houses. And I've been to open houses that have had referendum materials created by Lori's department, and they've been outstanding. What I can't do is elevate that above taking some extra time on a decision as critical as closing a school. So does that mean that we might have especially for the earliest open houses, that we might have most of the information ready, but something might have changed a bit if we did do something different with Elmore? Maybe, but I think this decision needs to rise or fall on its own merits and not based on the not based on the timeline of open houses.
Lynn.
So I need to have some specifics. What are those merits? What, I know a difficult decision is always best postponed. We don't want to decide, we want to put it off. So what exactly would we be looking for that would help us make a better decision about this on July 8th than we can make tonight?
I think if we were delaying it to look for more options, it would direct the administration to look at what else might there be. All right, we have Lincoln with the smallest student body. Do we do something different at Elmore instead of expanding as much in Lincoln? I'm not saying there doesn't need to be some work at Lincoln as well. There's important programs that are housed there. It's more, it gives more time to look at options other than closing the highest percentage full building. Additionally, I'm not fully convinced at this time. We have to close schools, and I have voted yes on closure of some of the schools, and I will be voting yes on the closure of and consolidation of more schools. But I think member has to make a decision as to where does that balance fall between, you know, the more schools you close, the fewer, you know, as I keep saying, you know, we've never really hashed it out as a discussion because we just do it building by building. Where do things fall on the spectrum of balancing the importance of saving additional dollars versus maintaining a neighborhood school? And on balance, my thought at this point is pretty strongly in favor of the money savings of closing Elmore don't justify closing this 79% full neighborhood school, especially without another school maybe as close to it as some of the other scenarios. So I would like to see if in a I'd like to see if in a month, and if a month is the deal breaker, we could schedule another meeting date on the in-between meeting. If that's what it comes down to, we could have this be for a special board meeting on July 15th to buy an extra week. But I guess I would feel better about voting yes or no if there was time to explore additional options versus if not.
James, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I'm trying to compare this Mr. Becker's argument to the one that we just said about the Langley-Doty question, whereas voting on this in its current state does not preclude us from making changes to these decisions if newer information were to be brought about. And although I can't personally see what additional information can be brought forward in a 1 month period of time that would cause a dramatic change in this course of action, and I've not heard any other courses of action even considered, because that's all happened up to this point. Courses of action have been reviewed, data, facts bearing on the problem, have spoken to all of the interest groups and have heard from everybody. And this is obviously with all due respect to the folks who from Elmore who are here representing their interests. We've heard from all these groups. We've heard from you, the passion, the love, the loyalty. But we have also taken into account the cost benefit, the risk versus reward. We've the school district, Vicky and her staff, have brought us to the point where we are at a point of decision. And had any other concerns or issues been raised, of which we've raised them, we've gotten answers so that we could make the decision tonight. So I, for one, am ready to decide. But again, if some new information should present itself, just like we did when we talked about Langley and Doty, we still have that option to review if newer information were to come about. So I'm not in favor of postponing this particular decision for a 1 month period. And I do respect the timeline that the district has laid out for us and for everyone to move things forward.
James.
Rick, I think you speak my mind to a degree. And I know we may differ on whether or not this is an analog to the Langley-Doty decision in the opportunities. But ultimately, the 1 month, even I would even beg 6 weeks is probably not appropriate, because we'd have to refactor our plan. And to your point, a set of decisions that have been reviewed, and this is 2 years in the making. But then it would be inappropriate for us to not get public feedback on those changes, right? And what that impact was. And so it is kind of a restart of a cycle. And that's where I see the challenge being, is that it's not something that I think we could entertain accomplishing in 2-3 weeks, which would be optimal. And I don't imagine that it would be very difficult to, in summer, organize the public feedback and really make that sound adjustments. I've reviewed that plan over and over and over again. And I know that Elmore is more at a bigger capacity than the other schools in play. Geographically, when you start talking about tank students being redistributed, if we swapped out tank for one of the other schools, or Elmore for one of the other schools, I think we have problems with where populations will land. So it feels more like agree that Elmore is to be closed, or don't agree that Elmore is closed. And I think that's a decision that we can take tonight, and everyone can register their votes.
Go ahead, Kobe.
First of all, thank you. And Andrew, I think I took your points very seriously, including Mr. Crossan and James and everyone in this room, including the teachers and parents and from Elmore. But it brings me back memories of years ago when my family was trying to run from the Viet Cong in Laos. It's almost like you are walking 9, 10 days in the jungle in the darkness, trying to survive. And I don't mean trying to compare what our district's going through compared to what a lot of families went through during the Vietnam War. But the idea is that we march in the dark for 10 days and finally got to the Mekong River. And what if my father say, hey, let's not cross and let's go back and reconsider that there's a chance that we could survive going back home 10 days back home to our village. And maybe there won't be any enemies along the way and we could survive that. When I'm listening to this, I'm very proud because I think all of us are fighting for one purpose, and that is to make sure that our students here in Green Bay have the best facility and have the best place to study and to become successful as students and beyond our schools here. And I think that we have spent so much time in the last 2 years. And my concern here is that tonight is the night that we actually make decisions, but now we can't be nervous about the decision and gonna go back. And that process is gonna take a lot more than just, I believe, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. And that's gonna delay us into other areas of what we're planning to do. So I know it is difficult. I know it's very difficult. And I read the emails and I heard the teachers, the parents and the concerned citizens about closing Elmore. But I think if you look at all the data, it makes sense that this makes sense. Change makes sense. And it happens all around us. It happened across America right now. And I think that I would agree to make a decision tonight so we can move forward.
And then Andrew.
As I listen to Koo, it occurs to me that we
Thank you,
haven't,
Lori.
we haven't spent any time talking about the advantages that will accrue to the Elmore students when we move them to Lincoln and Chapel, correct? And I think we should just take a minute to think about that. They will have access to professional resources that they don't as easily access now in a much more modern building.
We have a motion to adjust it, so that would be on the main motion. This goes with that. So I agree with what you're saying, but I think it's after we vote. Thank you. The motion right now that's on the floor is to postpone it. So I'm not sure if what she's speaking to is on the motion. It would be after this is voted yes or down, whether we delay or not, what she's talking about. So
I think she's making her argument to not delay.
I would say that if we consider the advantages that would accrue to the students and the faculty in making this motion, making this change, we might decide not to postpone it and go ahead and make the decision tonight. So if I may continue, students will have access to a full-time counselor and social worker that they might not have now. They will be learning in a building with a much higher educational adequacy score and a building that was built for modern education. The way buildings are built now for school is very different than they were back when Elmore was built. And one thing that I have to say that we cannot ignore is that children who go to Chapel will have access to the International Baccalaureate program, and I can't say enough about that. I am familiar with the way they teach that way at Chapel. The teachers are very well trained. And I didn't know anything about the International Baccalaureate program until within the last year when I suddenly had to participate in the 5-year review and renewal of the program. And I learned a lot. And if I could go back and redo my teaching career, I would teach from the International Baccalaureate position. So that's something that, we should think about the good things that can happen if we make this decision to go forward.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. As far as the motion on the floor is whether or not we're going to delay. Go ahead, Andrew.
I certainly, I have no frame of reference to, Mr. Lee's discussion about his, situation as a refugee, and I'm grateful that, our country opened its arms to you, and I have a lot of respect for that. I think here we're looking at, I guess I will point out a couple things that are different with respect to the previous resolution. Due to the lower utilization of Langlade or Doty were going to close. And if there were to be some kind of unusual situation that would occur, it still would not be a situation. I can see no possibility that would keep them both open, although if there was some kind of a funder that wanted to come in with 8 figures talking about something different, that's a different scenario to me because 2 schools are going to become one there. And if additional funds came in, then it would still be 2 schools would become one. Elmore, in the interest of, with weighing the important neighborhood schools, we can simply not close Elmore. We can expand other schools less, a bit less. We can do other things here. So I think probably people's minds are made up about postponing or not. I would be open to using one of the other, we do have the 15th of July. That could be a second, an additional meeting. I only made the motion to say postponing it to July. That would give some flexibility to the district to schedule an additional meeting in there. But I think, I don't think that there's, the other thing too is sometimes you have a situation where a building is in terrible shape and people are not all that upset about a school closure because it's, change is hard, but look, yes, we're going into the new building, right? Or in some cases, it's essential. MacArthur cannot be repaired in its current form. So again, that's why we don't have a room full of MacArthur people saying, no, spend double the money to rebuild it on the same site, because that doesn't make sense. But I do think it means something. I do weigh community input into my decision. I obviously don't make it my whole decision-making process because I have certainly voted for things that people did not like. So I guess we're ready to see if we'll take more time to take a little more time to see if there's some more options or not.
Okay, the motion on the table is to delay. And we have a motion and a second. Are we ready to vote? Kinsey?
I'll do a voice vote for this one. Becker,
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
Crossan,
No.
Lyerly,
Nay.
McCoy,
No.
Lee,
No.
Gerlach.
No.
Okay, we're back to the original motion. Um, I just my take on this is that, I go way work that ATS&R did and the facilities, task force, and I see our good friend Jim Genrick back there, um, who served on that committee, and they did, weeks of hard work, and they talked about things like educational adequacy and, deferred maintenance, and things that are not, very titillating, but we do have to, take them into consideration when we're talking about long, long, well, when we talk about large scale change and a timeline of not 3 years, but 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. Those are the things that task force was asked to consider. And they came to us with a plan that has been, let's just say it's been nibbled away at a little bit. And tonight we're here finally to make these really difficult decisions. We just voted to not delay, and I just wanted to add my 2 cents in, is that I'm going to vote to close Elmore, and there isn't anything about that that gives me joy or happiness. So that's all. Go ahead, Brian.
Andrew had mentioned it before, the capacity and the enrollment numbers at this school are higher than what we've looked at as far as percentages of schools that we've made that similar decision on. I appreciate the parents and staff here that it's not impacting my decision at all on it. My decision is based on the students that are there and the amount of students and the percentage of enrollment that is currently in the building. So I plan on voting against it.
Okay, Andrew.
In addition to what Brian said, as I've said before for a really long time, I have heard many dire stories about budget catastrophes, and we have had budget problems, some worse than others, absolutely. Yet we are facing a scenario where it is probable that we will have a somewhat friendlier, we have more competitive districts in the upcoming legislative election than ever before, which gives more opportunities for voices on both sides to be heard and have a more balanced debate in Madison. And even without that, even in a time when generally people thought that the legislature was not on the whole particularly friendly to increased education funding, we did catch a break even before there were changes. And we've closed some schools. Our budget shortfall, my vote would be different if we were still looking at the kind of catastrophic numbers we were looking at before, but they are not as bad anymore. And I think this one, I said, I voted yes on some where I think it's the right decision. I think it's a mistake to close Elmore, and we can do better. Elmore wasn't discussed much, if I remember correctly. In the beginning, there was going to be close Elmore and make Franklin a K-8, but that didn't really last for long. And after that, I think Elmore kind of dropped out of the discussion. Why? Probably because it's 79% full. And I just don't see it. I don't think this is the right one to close right now. If I'm wrong, and if we're all wrong, if families aren't moving in, families aren't having kids. I mean, I'm not saying I would never close Elmore, and I wouldn't be saying this right now if I might have been having this discussion in the previous motion, if those schools were both in the seventies, but they're not, they're in the sixties. Or, but here, again, they're in the seventies and we're closing the most full one, and we have not had people. Again, there's not been that other side of saying, hey, you know what, and Chapel is great. And you know what, kids who, if we close Elmore, kids who go to Chapel or Lincoln will have a great education at Chapel or Lincoln. But if we don't close Elmore, kids will have a great education at Elmore. And kids at Chapel will have a great education at Chapel. And there is, we're gonna expand Chapel and there will be room for choice opportunities if people want to do the IB. So.
James.
Andrew and Brian, I respect your positions on this decision, and it's a very difficult decision. I'm going to vote to close Elmore, and one of the reasons why, and we keep addressing the capacity of Elmore, and we had some guiding principles, but those guiding principles indicated that the of the master facility plan should target optimal capacity of the schools and not to make decisions about consolidation based on capacity. And it has worked out in some situations where the schools that made the most sense geographically and per plan and feeder patterns were also very low utilization schools. What I'm faced with is if we do not close Elmore, right, and we leave it open and there's not a replacement facility that is closed, now we don't get the savings associated with the closure. And one of the guiding principles was to end up with a set of facilities that were targeting being graded as good on the educational adequacy scale by ATS&R. And one of the key components, as described tonight, was separate gym versus cafeterias and everything. So we would have to take decisions to go against some of our adequates when we have a play, we have a reason why this consolidation makes sense, and it actually feeds students and it makes Lincoln and Chapel operate at optimal capacity. We would have to take one of our oldest buildings in the district and that building to bring it up to educational adequacy levels. And that's just something when I look at all the math, it doesn't seem fiscally responsible. When there is a plan that has been hammered out, has received feedback from the community that addresses a budget problem, which I agree with you, budgets, the numbers change on an annual basis based on legislative and local concerns. But I don't think that doing nothing is a fiscally responsible action.
And also, I mean, we just had an update from our CFO about the deficit. And yes, things look much, much better than they did even just a year ago. But I don't share your optimism, Andrew, I'm afraid on that. I don't, I'd like to think that our state legislature will continue to come through for us, but we can't know that. And we also, you know, we have to face the reality is that that our deficit will start going back up in just a couple years. And and I need to be able to tell people that we have done everything we can to be fiscally responsible with the money that is entrusted to us by the taxpayers of this community. So that's kind of my last take on that. Go ahead, Lynn.
I have a question. Again, I don't know exactly who can answer this, but I just want to be clear. The presentation we had from Nexus this evening when they were telling us about the additions and improvements to Chapel, I assume that that would not necessarily happen if we don't close Elmore. I don't think we can assume that we're going to keep Elmore open and make those improvements, right?
That's correct. That was based on the closure of Elmore.
Just to be clear, some of the additions to Chapel were to increase capacity, but some of them were to address some of the deferred maintenance and educational adequacy. There's a cafeteria being added to separate cafeteria and gym as well. So that was my point, is we would have to still make investments across all of the schools that remain open, right? But so you're right, though, it's not all of it.
All right. Andrew.
So, the educational adequacy has a set of principles of things that are, good ideas. Separating cafeterias from gyms are a good idea. It's a preference. I'm glad we're doing it in some places. I'm not convinced in the case of Elmore, it's worth splitting up a neighborhood school over it, even if we weren't able to find the space to separate the cafeteria and the gym. I think the decision to be taken here is, I think it boils down to a decision about where on the spectrum of saving a bit less money and maintaining one additional neighborhood school versus one more consolidation and saving more money. That's where we're at. And on this one, I fall on the side of less savings this time and maintaining a neighborhood school.
Brian.
I appreciate with the discussion of the presentation that what we would need to ask for in a referendum and the improvements that would take place, how these are interrelated. But this particular question talks about one particular school. So as I'm voting on that, if it fails, then we need to figure out how that plays into it. I think the intent with other moving pieces in it doesn't really, I understand how they all come together, but excuse me, sorry. That's not necessarily what we're voting on. So if we vote on this is one of the few opportunities we have as a board to directly vote on one of the resolutions to close the schools. Then the other pieces line up. Whether this passes or fails, they'll have to line up. So I don't want members necessarily influenced on that when we can look at the pieces separate. So.
Anybody else? I think we're ready to vote. Kinsey.
Online voting is now open. Mills.
No.
All votes have been entered and the motion is carried. The results of the individual board members' votes are as follows. Becker, no. McCoy, yes. Lyerly, yes. Mills, no. Gerlach, yes. Crossan, yes. Lee, yes.
Okay. Do you think we could take a break? All right, we're gonna take a 5-minute break.
Totally know that would work.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind. Oh, you're okay. Up there? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think. I
Like Dawn is here. Oh, I remember. I know, but I thought you were getting the night off because Dawn is here, no? You'd love to come?
I don't mind.
Okay,
I
fine.
knew Dawn said she was probably gonna come.
Then you're welcome.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. We can have more than one.
Yes, I know. I'm gonna see.
Yeah, but thank you. Keep it up. Keep up the good work.
You guys know.
Guys. Yeah. You don't.
brand new, like with the turnover, with the, it's brand new. So I'm like, tell me how work study works. Okay, copy.
Okay, we're gonna get going again.
Open chat will be there tomorrow. Is there sequences now? There's not. Oh, I have it on my calendar. Oh, good, then you. I better double check, but I don't think so. Was there only one this month? Yeah. Oh, then we won't be there. I'll double check. I'm gonna stare at them, maybe you show up. Nobody.
Okay, we're back. All right, we're moving on to the next item, which is the revisions to the org chart. Would someone please read that motion?
I move that the organization chart along with the job descriptions as presented be approved.
Second.
All right. Questions or Andrew?
I would like to request a division of the question and vote separately on the modifications to the chart. And then to have a separate vote on the salaries and brackets taken all together.
Second.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
So I find I am greatly in favor of the streamlined organizational chart, and I want to support the streamlined organizational chart. When it comes to the salary classifications, there are some of them that I think the position is placed into too high of a salary category. I'm not looking to specify which ones, but I'm hoping to not have to vote no on the entire package. And I'd like to have what I think is likely to be a 7-0 vote on the overall, on the chart restructuring. And this would allow for that to happen. Otherwise, I guess I would reluctantly have to vote no on the whole thing, but I'd rather not have to do that.
Go ahead, Brian.
I understand Andrew's concern on that. As a practice, I usually have deferred to the superintendent as far as pay and salary on specific positions, trusting that, as a board, we have one employee that we're responsible for. I appreciate your concern on that, Andrew, but I would hesitate to look at specific positions. So if that conversation goes there, just the tact and possibility of that, I'd be concerned with.
James.
Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
What I meant was the division of the question would be the chart and the whole list of salaries.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else want to speak to Andrew's? Go ahead, Brian.
And Andrew, I just want to apologize because I appreciate you clarifying that. And I don't want to give the intent that it would have necessarily gone down that road. You're a very experienced school board member and recognize that. I just wanted to kind of lay that out for everyone. So thank you.
I don't know. I'll just speak for myself. I don't see the benefit of separating them. I trust this chart and I trust the salaries that are attached to it. So go ahead, Lynn.
On the other hand, I don't see any problem with doing it, and I would support that. I
Okay.
would be happy to do that.
James?
It's reasonable to separate the questions around the organizational design and those salary increases. So I agree.
Okay. Should we take a vote on Andrew's motion?
Lyerly,
Aye.
Crossan, Becker,
Aye.
Lee, Mills,
Aye.
Gerlach,
Aye.
McCoy.
No. Okay, so that motion passes. Can someone offer then the wording for the motion to separate them? Go ahead, Brian.
I move that we approve the district office organizational chart as presented.
Second.
Discussion, questions? Andrew. Oh, I'm sorry, Brian?
I think the superintendent and the administrative cabinet has done a good job of leveling it out, and one of our goals, and looking at the backfilling of positions and concerns that have been brought up.
Andrew?
In addition to what Brian said, I think it's important to recognize that, you know, we have had conversations about the number of layers of administration being a problem. That went to, that complexity of administration was a part, although not everything, detailed in the report by the consultant about some cultural concerns, but certainly the complex structure of administration was a part of that, and I'm glad to see some streamlining here and the removal from the organizational chart of the three particular executive director positions, all of which were accomplished through the normal process of retirements. And I think this is a good, I think it's a good step in the right direction, and there has to be, there isn't anyone downtown that doesn't work hard or didn't work hard, but there do have to be subtractions in the central office numbers if schools are to be closed, or there will be no community support. So I'm very, very much in favor of the new organizational chart.
Go.
Also, I just want to echo those 2 points with Mr. Becker, Mr. Meltz. From a new perspective, someone new to the board, before I was elected, I think the charts presents some degrees of problem in some ways. We could kind of tie that to the morales of the leadership at the facility building, because of the fact that we have so many people here, and a lot of people are saying it's top heavy. And I'm happy to see that we streamline a lot of these positions, and the charts actually much more simplify and to the point. So I really do think that Vicky and her team did an awesome job on this.
Anybody else before we vote? Brian?
I also want to recognize the increased workload that we're going to be putting on administrators in this district with this. And with budget constraints, we've been putting increased workloads on everyone in the district. So I'm aware of that, and I appreciate the steps that have been taken with that, as I am with our teachers, our facility staff, our para support, everyone in the district. So.
Yes. All right, are we ready? Okay, Kinsey?
Crossan, Gerlach,
Aye.
Lyerly,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
McCoy,
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Okay. Are we doing another motion? Okay.
I move that we approve the adjustments to reflect the scope of responsibilities and restructure of the organization chart as presented.
Say it again?
I really just took the heading off of the next column, so I move that we approve the adjustment to reflect the scope of responsibilities and restructure of the organization as presented. And the job descriptions.
There you go.
Second.
All right. Further discussion or questions? Andrew?
So to be clear, I think there, and I will honor what I said and not say which ones. And in fact, there are some positions in this list that I'm very happy to see are getting an increase because I think they were underpaid. I think there are some positions that our salary was already generous compared to the market, and it was, I appreciate the division of the question so I can reflect my strong support of the organizational chart changes. And with respect to the salaries, there's there's some disagreements. I can't vote yes.
All right, anybody else? Kinsey?
Lee,
Yes.
Mills,
Aye.
McCoy,
Aye.
Lyerly,
Aye.
Gerlach,
Aye.
Crofton, Becker.
No.
Okay. Moving on to selection of providers for community-based after-school programs. Would someone please read the motion?
I move that the Boys and Girls Club of Green Bay be approved to provide services for the 21st Century Community Learning Centers and or fund 80 community-based after-school programs for the 2024-2025 school year for Dan's and Fort Howard Elementary Schools for a total of $285,788 as presented.
A second.
Okay. Any questions, any discussion? Brian?
I think this is another great example of how we partner with local community organizations that have had a connection in our community for quite some time. And I'm thrilled that we're able to continue to do that.
Any other questions or discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. Lynn, are you able to vote online? Mills,
Aye.
all votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay. On to D. Would someone read the motion, please?
I'll do H because I think that's where we are.
Oh, of course.
I
Sorry,
move-
I saw the H and I said D. Forgive me. It's A.
I move that the YMCA of Green Bay be approved to provide services for the 21st Century Community Learning Centers and or fund 80 community-based after-school programs for the 2024-2025 school year for Baird, Beaumont, Doty, Eisenhower, Howe, and Sullivan Elementaries schools for a total of $922,954.19 as presented be approved.
Second.
Lynn?
I was just wondering why Langlade School is not listed on here. I understood that there were a lot of students from Langlade that went to the YMCA for after school. I don't understand this.
Go ahead. Yeah.
That's a very good question, Lynn. The Y program for Langlade is not the 21st Century Community Learning Center program. It's just the WISE program. This is an after-school program funded through the federal Department of Education that has specific grants associated with that.
Okay, Brian.
It's great to see a partnership with a community organization that has such a strong connection within our school district and within our community.
Anybody else? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. Mills,
Aye.
all votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay. Letter I.
I move that the 300 and 400 series policy and rule revisions, with the exception of 440 students' right and responsibilities, be approved.
Second.
Hang on just a second. So under I, okay.
Quicker than dividing the question because I already made the motion of everything but 440, and then there'll have to be a motion on 440.
Okay, all right. All right, any discussion, any questions about that? Okay, Kinsey, oh, go ahead.
We need to know why we want to peel out 440. What's that?
Through the chair, I'm going to guess that he's going to have some modifications to that question in particular.
Okay, so go ahead, Kinsey.
Lyerly,
Aye.
Crossan,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
Gerlach,
Aye.
McCoy.
Aye. Okay, so now we're gonna take 440. And we'll need a motion. Do you have one, Andrew?
I move that we approve that the revision of the Board of Education policy and rule 440 students' rights and responsibility be approved.
Second.
Andrew?
I would like to amend the motion on by removing the red line at the end of implementation on page 1, which would mean restoring all students are protected by all federal, state, and local laws, including the Constitution of the United States and the Wisconsin Constitution. So it would be an amendment to restore those words back into the policy. I move to amend by restoring those.
Sorry, second.
Lynn?
Can someone explain to us why it was taken out, please?
Hi. The reason we take out references really to laws, and you'll find that many of our policies at the end of the policy reference in the legal references include references to the laws. So you'll see in the legal references at the end is Article 1 of the Wisconsin Constitution, the United States Constitution, First Amendment, and then various different laws, is because that's where those references would be included, and we wouldn't include in the policy language. Essentially policy language that says you have the rights you already enjoy under the laws and the Constitution of the United States. So it's really redundancy. Yeah. But it doesn't add or delete anything if Andrew wants to include it in the policy. We just don't normally include that type of language, and this is a very outdated policy, and so it's being updated.
So this is something that you're doing for, as a general rule, you're removing the redundancy, right? For others too.
Yes, we don't typically, in a rare occasion, we will cite to the law in the policy, but by and large, we do not cite to laws and policies because laws, again, it's redundant.
Have you done this and have you removed that kind of language in other policies recently?
Yes, and I couldn't tell you which ones,
I
but
understand.
again, just like we're formatting things with the purpose, definitions, implementation, fonts, underlines, but like that's just something when you write policy, you don't refer in the content of the policy to laws, statutes, the Constitution, those sorts of things.
Go ahead, Andrew.
So I do see that parts of the Wisconsin Constitution, US Constitution are in there as far as legal references, but legal references aren't the same thing as policy language. And, you know, is this a symbolic change? Yes. Yes, it is. I think I appreciate the changes in this. I was able to understand the arguments last time about why maybe the schoolhouse door it was intending to be expansive rather than restrictive, to take that out, and we did, and I'm not challenging that. I think there is something symbolic that is meaningful in striking all students are protected by all federal, state, and local laws, including the Constitution of the United States and the Wisconsin Constitution, when it's in the student rights and responsibilities policy by that name. If this appeared in some other policy where it was much less relevant, I would say, yep, we're streamlining. So it is symbolic, but I think it is an important point here, and reinstating, you know, passing my amendment, reinstating that language doesn't harm anything. I think the message is better if we don't delete that sentence than if we delete it.
James.
Andrew, do you not feel like the first sentence of section A in implementation kind of touches that base, in that the district shall not deny or limit any rights retained by students or responsibilities placed upon students as citizens of the United States or the United States of America?
I think you're looking at a different revision if you're talking about that.
No.
Which part?
It's at the beginning, right here, this first line.
Under implementation.
I still think there's something about the sentence that I'd like to keep it. I think it's better with that sentence than without.
Linda and James.
And now that you called our attention to this sentence, this brings up a concern, because remember, we removed the word citizen in the very first line because some of our students in our schools are not citizens of the United States. So we probably need to remove it here too.
James?
I understand, some symbolism. I have spent a lot of time in policies, and I don't necessarily appreciate symbolic language in policies. So I just don't understand what it's really doing for us. If there's legal reference, it's almost like, well, I'm just not in favor of it.
Anybody else? Andrew?
So I can speak to them because it says the district shall not deny or limit any rights retained by students, comma, or responsibilities placed on students as citizens. And I think it's conceivably possible that there might be a responsibility of citizenship that would not apply to someone who is a non-student or a guest student or something, but they would still have the way we do things here, they would have the rights, but I could see there being some, if something were imposed on us because of some military draft or something, that would not be a responsibility of someone who's not a citizen.
Can I give you, can I give you an example? And the ladies from League of Women Voters are here actually, and so this is probably pretty appropriate. Uh, So the Wisconsin law requires schools to give students the ability to take time away from school to go vote. And so you cannot vote if you're not a citizen. So that would be one example, little less draconian than the military, but that would be one example of rights that students as citizens would have versus students who are not citizens, the ability to go vote.
So are you telling us, Melissa, that it's okay to keep the word citizens in here? I see the difference now. Thank you.
It's not part of the motion. I think we're just talking about it, but there is, as Andrew pointed out, the rights of students and the rights of students as citizens. So two different groups.
All right, so, any more discussion about Andrew's motion to retain that language? I think we're ready to vote on that. Can you read the motion back, Kinsey?
I don't even know what it is. I have to go back.
The motion is to amend the policy to include in section 2A1, to not delete essentially the language, all students are protected by all federal, state, and local laws, including the Constitution of the United States and the Wisconsin Constitution.
Okay, so that's what we're voting on. We ready?
McCoy,
No.
Gerlach,
No.
Mills,
No.
Lee,
No.
Becker,
Aye.
Crossan,
No.
Lyerly.
No.
Okay. We're back to the original motion. Brian,
I'd like to offer an amendment under implementation part A to strike the words as citizens.
I'll second.
okay, where, hang on, tell me again where you are. You're under under purpose?
No.
Under implementation, 2A, all right. So you want to strike the word as citizens?
Yes.
Okay. And, someone, who seconded it? Andrew?
I did.
All right. Okay, so go ahead, Lynn.
Didn't Melissa just explain to us that this is not restricting their rights because they are not citizens? This is saying that the group of people who are citizens shall have the rights of citizens and the school cannot take it away. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, so the first part says should not deny or limit any rights retained by students, so the whole group of students, or responsibilities, so those civic duty responsibilities that are placed on students who are citizens of the state of Wisconsin and the United States.
Brian.
My reason for requesting it be stricken is the same as under 1A, where we struck citizens at that point. Students who are here, we don't know whether they're citizens or not, and they still should have the same protection of it. So under A, where we were talking about it, I believe that's what you were kind of alluding to before with the previous motion of addressing it. So that's why I'm offering that motion.
Go ahead, Lynn.
And that was why I was saying it, but Melissa pointed out my mistake. In the beginning, we are saying at part one, under purpose, we were saying students are citizens entitled to the same, and we know they're not all citizens. But down in this one, implementation, we are talking about the fact that if you are a citizen, the school cannot deny your responsibilities as a citizen, right? So I rescind it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to, under 2A to take out as citizens. Does anyone else want to speak to that? Andrew?
Yeah, I think I'm okay with keeping as citizens because we're not denying or limiting any rights to anybody. Or responsibilities as citizens, if that was an and, or if the sentence was different, I would think it would need to come out, but I don't hear.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, I think we're ready to vote on on Brian's motion.
McCoy,
No.
Gerlach,
No.
Mills,
Aye.
Lee,
No.
Becker,
No?
Crossan,
No.
Lyerly.
No.
Okay. Okay, we're back to the original motion.
I move that the board approve policy 440 as amended.
It's not amended.
There's no motion, the motion to approve 440 is on the table.
I said yes.
No.
That was the original.
Is there a rule in this list? No. Yeah. So the motion was made to adopt 440. Two amendments were made that failed, so we're back to voting on just 440.
Correct. All right, are we ready to take that vote, guys? All right, Kinsey,
Lyerly,
Aye.
Crossan,
Aye.
Becker,
No?
Lee,
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
Gerlach,
Aye.
McCoy.
aye. All right, we're moving on to J, repeal of Rule 343.1. Could someone please read the motion? At first, and then we,
I move that the Board of Education, I'm sorry. I move that we approve the Board of Education Rule 343.1 grouping for instructional guidelines as presented. Be repealed.
anybody want a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. Mills,
Aye.
all votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
All right, on to K. Would someone like to read the motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education Policy 440.1 academic integrity as presented be approved.
Second.
Questions, discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. Mills,
Aye.
all votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay. Al, would someone please read the motion? Oh, wait a minute. There isn't a motion for this one. Yeah, we're just gonna discuss this.
Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to offer a motion to strike section 3A and section 3C from policy 170.
Second.
All right, questions or discussion?
So when we were discussing appointments last meeting, there was a debate and there was also a pretty rigorous kind of position that we didn't understand the actual purpose of these clauses as written. So comparisons were drawn to city council, and I don't know that those comparisons were appropriate or analogous. And without having a power delegated to these committees to amend or approve agenda items, or take other actions that represent the need for that organization, and it's just a speaking position at the working session and at the board meetings. I just didn't understand that, so I wanted to have us be able to vote on whether or not we really believe that this should be part of the policy. I know that there's strong wills or strong opinions on both sides of this, so I just offered it for action.
Okay, Andrew?
This is, if you do this, this is the most, you are not just, you are affirmatively saying yes to the greatest concentration of power in the hands of two people that this board has ever had since it's been elected. And I'm confident that I can say that you are concentrating power like that more so than ever since it's been elected. I don't know about before it was elected. And I'm including the 80s when it was pretty concentrated. We have a history of this. It was illegally against policy. These positions were not filled for 2 years. And this is not a question of, and I realize the motion is made to scrap this, but the amount of the goodwill, the playing along, throw this out and, that is a clear statement that there are the 2 and there are the 5. And this, there's not really power in the committees, I get that, but there is some division of authority, some little bit of leadership opportunity, and cutting this out will alter relationships, and it will alter how the board works if this is cut out.
Brian?
I understand the argument being made for it. I don't agree with any of it. I think the fact that we can have 3 separate committees, that it has functioned previously with using that, and it does give the opportunity to go and have other people just help facilitate the meetings, is a significant thing. I agree with Andrew on a lot of what he's saying with that. This distributes the ability to function, the ability to facilitate the meeting, but also I think this is an important policy that we've had, and I don't think we should just cut it out. I don't see any harm in us having it. So I guess the discussion from the 2 people making the motion of not necessarily utilizing it, I don't see any harm in keeping it. And I think it's important that we keep this and implement it.
Anybody else want to speak to this? Go ahead, Lynn.
I will ask the same question that I asked at the last meeting. I don't know what the value of it is. I've never experienced it on this board. I've certainly experienced it on city council. Very, as James said, very, very different situation. If it's just a matter of someone else facilitating part of the meeting, I just don't see that as power. I don't understand And again, it's the policy. We have to either do it or change the policy.
Brad.
I would be more than happy to discuss outside of a closed session. I'm sorry, outside of this with a one-on-one level of the different concerns I have with this, because I don't think it's necessarily something that should be a full board discussion. I think that it is important to have members facilitate different sections. It's been important enough that they've done it in the past. It had stopped for 2 years. I'm not a big fan of always looking back at what previous boards have done and making sure that we continue with it moving forward. I am kind of offended when people look at it as a power thing. It's not. This is a facilitation of using board policy and giving other members the opportunity to facilitate the meeting. There's no harm in that. And I think it actually makes us a more effective and healthier board by doing that.
Then why the discussion about power? I don't understand the power part.
If you're asking me, I guess, perhaps distribution of leadership, is a better word. If people like that better, I could see where it's more about that. It's a distribution of leadership and ensures that it's a policy that for 40, no, not for 40 years, for 50 years, except 2 years we didn't follow it, had every single board member had a bit of an opportunity for meeting leadership at some times, which I think is healthy. I also think that there is also some benefit in that, even before it was committees, when it was work sessions, there tended to be people with perhaps more subject matter interest in a certain area that naturally gravitated towards a committee, and the pre-board meeting discussions with those two board members may have featured more or less time about education or more or less time about policies, though never zero of those things.
But you very specifically said it was a concentration of power.
No, it is, I mean, sure, but I understand the committees don't have, that much power. But there's an opportunity for specialization, and it is a distribution of leadership. So there is
It felt like an accusation. Go ahead, Brian.
I think that there's some dynamics that we as a board need to work on, and whether we do that during a retreat or some other option with that. And I understand Andrew's phrasing on it in the way that could have been interpreted with it, but I think the shared leadership also gives other board members the opportunity to, like Andrew said, focus on certain areas and demonstrate that leadership as well with it. I don't think we need to change a policy. I think we need to implement the policy. I appreciate the question being brought up, whether we change it or not. I think changing a policy, especially this significant, is a dangerous road to go down. So.
Go ahead, James.
So I brought this up in intention to have a robust discussion because some of us have not participated in those committees. As written, I reject the concept that there is any amount of power in how it's structured. And I would suggest that if that is a concern, this is to strike a contrary position around that there's a concentration of power, a policy should state that, right? And actually, distribute some power across committees, whatever. Just as written, it doesn't do that, right? And it is the movement of the chair around the table during the public the board meetings. So my interest in actually raising this question is I don't see it the same way, in that the specialization doesn't necessarily foster a healthy board, because you may have a tendency to say, well, that's their concept and their focus, and my focus is over here. And generally right now, I read everything and I try to be real, pay attention to a lot. And as a analog to the city, I feel like we are one kind of set of services that the city provides. And inside that, I don't know that the need to specialize is healthy. I want to be very focused on policy and the fiscal condition of the district and operationally as well in education. So I just didn't see it the same way. And I'm okay wherever we go with this, but I do think that it needed to see some discussion because as written, there is nothing there except the distribution of speaking time and directing the board meeting. And that's it. So, and whatever we classify that as, if we want more, we just need to take a different approach to that policy and actually establish some of the powers that individuals may want. So.
Andrew.
So I know that, I guess I am willing to settle for the bit of shared leadership that's here because I know that there's not enough interest on the board to have subcommittees with any decision-making power, and I don't even know if it's a great idea myself with 7 people. In response to specialization, it didn't specialize all that much because all of these committees were committees of the whole anyways. And I think perhaps a time to reevaluate if this is working or not, since many of the board members did not experience this, even though it was the policy and the chairs were not appointed, would be to appoint the chairs, do it for a year. And if it's not effective after a year or after 6 months, then make this motion. But I think it is unfair to not implement what should have been implemented for 2 years and now take it out when no one had seen it.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Rick.
Just a question as to why was this suspended 2 years ago? If you can give me some background on that. What was the reason that we suspended that part of the policy?
That's a good question, and I don't have a good answer for you. Go ahead. If someone else can offer that up, go ahead, Andrew.
So we had committees that a previous superintendent and board president told people were going to be committees with some authority and with some power. That wasn't true, or at least it wasn't true across all of the committees. Committee chairs, and at least one case were told that they could add people to the list of who would come to meetings. And I have an email that probably hasn't been deleted yet of where in my very first meeting as a committee chair, under the committees, not the work sessions, that was untrue. Now, those people are gone, but what the board did after about a year of the committees, and this is important, the board didn't say, let's just scrap it and have the chair do everything. The board proactively in 2022 voted to go back to the work sessions with the co-facilitators. The board did that. Why the co-chairs were not appointed in April 2022 or in April 2023, I don't know, but I wasn't in leadership at the time.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Question, please. So let's say hypothetically, I am appointed one of these chairs. What will I do?
You will facilitate, say you were the chair of the education subcommittee. I don't know why we're calling it a subcommittee, but let's just call it that for now. And you would facilitate every other month, because you would switch with your counterpart on the board, that section of a school board meeting.
Of the board.
Yeah.
And then typically, typically those two.
Put your microphone on, Andrew.
Typically, those two would make and second in one order or another the motions, and that also assured a distribution of motion making and seconding. It wasn't universal, but generally Nancy and I would move and second usually the things on the education list, and LLW and Dawn in some order would do the policy governance ones, if I remember correctly. So it helped with that flow a little better. There wasn't, it's not a primary reason, but it's a side benefit of it.
Go ahead, Rick.
I take it this implies some additional meetings or additional sessions with prior to the work sessions happening? Or, I mean, how do you preside over something that you're just finding out as everyone else is? I don't understand that.
It's the existing work sessions. So last week, 2 weeks ago, theoretically, there were, the education part would have gone, first of all, if there was a special board meeting before, which I think there was. So the board president would do that, and then when we moved into the work sessions, you might be the facilitator for the work session and call on people and, move down the work session meeting agenda for that, for education. And then I might do the same for policy, and James might do the same for operations. And next month it would be Ku and Brian and Lynn. Unless one of the two doesn't want to, then, no one was ever forced to do it.
James? Okay. Anybody else want to further discuss this motion? James' motion? Okay, Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. Mills,
No.
all votes have been entered and the motion did not carry. The results of the individual board member votes are as follows. Becker, no. McCoy, yes. Lyerly, no. Mills, no. Gerlach, yes. Crossan, yes. Lee, no.
Okay, so then we can move on to under board oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ku.
Laura,
Yes.
just before we move on, I think the two gentlemen here has been here long enough, and I think they, we should excuse them if they have something to do. What do you think?
Please, thank you. Yeah.
2 more hours.
Yeah, good night, guys. Thank you, Ku. All right, we're going to move on then to under 8, school board organization appointments. So I heard from you, and I actually didn't hear from all of you. But as of now, this is what I have is under education, Lynn Gerlach and Brian Mills, operations, Rick Crossan and Cooley, under policy and governance, James Lyerly and Andrew Becker. Under education is Lynn and Brian. Under operations, Rick and Koo. Under policy and governance, James and Andrew. Andrew,
Right, but what does that mean anymore?
what do you mean?
What, we just removed the,
It failed.
but we failed, wait, it failed for this?
Yes.
It was a double negative.
Failed to be removed.
Failed to be removed. It was a double negative, sorry. Okay.
All right, so that will be the appointments for those committees and starting at our next work session. You all should be prepared to, I don't know, work out with your counterparts who's gonna facilitate those sections of the meeting, okay? And then flip the next month. Go ahead, Lynn.
Just for the sake of smooth meetings, will it be important for you to know in advance who's going to be running that part? Nope.
No,
Okay.
no. I'm sure you're all competent to do this. So go ahead, Brian.
I intentionally didn't put any recommendations, so wherever you needed me, but
That's how you ended up where you were.
no, that's all right. If our two new board members are comfortable being on the same committee, that's my only question. And
Oh.
I'm sure you've had that, but if you need to switch me, I'm happy where.
I'm fine working with Mr. Lee. We got this.
All right, okay. All right, so do we have to vote on that? No, no voting. Okay, so we're moving on to the consent agenda. Would someone please make that motion?
I move that the consent agenda items as presented be approved.
Second.
All right, discussion or questions?
Yeah,
Kinsey?
Can I voice vote?
Oh, what's,
I need a voice vote.
Online voting is now open. Becker,
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
all votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
all right, since we. Yes, ma'am. Oh, please. Come to the board table, please.
Wait a minute. Wait, is this Jen? Oh my God, you've been sitting here the whole time. Okay.
Please.
I think we call it hazing, don't we?
Yeah. No, not in public.
Miss Jen, grab a seat and introduce yourself and tell them what you'll be doing.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so I am Jen Tremblay. I am the new Associate Director of Multilingual Learners Bilingual Programs. I'm very excited to get started. I've been in the district 21 of my last 23 years of teaching. Yeah, so I'm really excited for this new role in the district and looking forward to what that brings.
Thank you for sitting through our meeting and thank you for letting us know that you were, that you're taking on this new position and welcome.
Thank
Welcome
you so
aboard.
much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. All right, do we need to vote agenda setting? Under agenda setting, the meeting schedule? No? No? All right, then with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
You have been watching the Green Bay Area Public School District's Board of Education meeting. Please visit the school district's website, www.gbaps.org, for more information on the district and future meeting dates. If you cannot fully access the information on this video, please let us know the accessibility issue you are having by calling 920-448-2025 or by email at communications@gbaps.org. We will try to provide the information to you in an alternative format and/or make the necessary improvements to make the information accessible.